Sympathetic magic is a belief that objects or actions that resemble something can influence that thing, either directly or through a spiritual connection. It's often categorized into homeopathic magic, like producing a desired effect by imitating it, and contagious magic, where things that have been in contact continue to influence each other. Anthropologist James Fraser defined it as a type of magic based on the idea that like produces like. This week we'll be looking into sympathetic magic. Now this is a term that I hadn't heard of till Christopher John Bjertnæs brought this up in some of his videos, and it's absolutely fascinating. It's more of an old pagan kind of belief, but we know that the likes of the Queen is a druid and all of this stuff kind of melds in, and they don't really have any preference. They'll just use what they think is appropriate. Now, I'm not saying I believe this stuff works, but I believe that there is an understanding at the root of this. The same as when you look at a cell and it knows that you're looking and it will behave differently. There is a connection here. I believe that very much. But this is a very interesting concept because this is a concept that many of these elites do believe in. So who was George Fraser? Fraser was born on the 1st of January 1854 in Glasgow, Scotland, the son of Catherine Brown and Daniel F. Fraser, who was a chemist. He attended school at Springfield Academy and Larchfield Academy in Helensburgh. He studied at the University of Glasgow and Trinity College, Cambridge, which is a well-known occult playground, where he graduated with honours in classics. His dissertation was published years later as The Growth of Plato's Ideal Theory. Now, Plato, Platonic, Neoplatonic, and Gnosticism very much coming together. One feeds off the other, and the Kabbalah as well is very much involved with that, and the different emanations of thought into material and the material into the spiritual. It has this same theme of the ethereal world being brought into the material as objects and how they're all connected. And this is something that these occultists very much based much of their belief system in. And this goes into transhumanism as well. So from Trinity, he went on to study law at the Middle Temple, but never practiced. Now that is very, very much important in the series that we've just done, Cults, Conspiracies and Chaos. We cover this, the fact that all of those in the UK that go into the law profession go through the temple, literally through that round Knights Templar temple in the city of London. These are occult schools, and you have to join these occult groups to get in these schools. Therefore the whole system is based around this cult. Now I'm not saying that all of them are evil or anything like that, depends how high up you go, but it very much is a system and a biological, neurological system in of itself. So that is Sir James George Fraser. He's the guy that came up with this concept of sympathetic magic. So examples of sympathetic magic, the most obvious one is voodoo dolls, representing someone to inflict harm through actions on the doll. So it's a looks like, sounds like, mimic of a person, and therefore it's connected in some way. I'm not saying I believe in these things, but this is what they believe. So that's the voodoo doll. Herbal remedies using plants that resemble body parts to treat ailments. Again, resembles. Cave paintings depicting successful hunts in the hope of influencing future hunts. Now this is really important when it comes to movies and films and all of these projections, like the Economist that came out and basically predicted what was going to happen with Hamas being allowed to fly into Israel. I think it was 2015 that. The sympathetic magic there, it's not just predictive programming, that's another term for it, but the whole basis behind sympathetic magic is that if they create it in a cinematic way and enough people see it, they'll bring it into the real world. And the counterweight to that is that people who know that they are trying to predict the future or control the future will be able to point that out in films. but by then it's too late when it actually happens. Rituals during harvest, ceremonies involving fertility symbols to ensure a good harvest, Saturnia, Saturnalia, and all of these festivals. And advertising, associating a product with positive emotions or experiences to influence consumer perception. These are all sympathetic magic. In essence, sympathetic magic is based on the idea that by manipulating or representing something, one can influence the real world object or person it represents. So what's really important to establish is that there are two types of sympathetic magic. Fraser broke down the idea further into two distinct parts: the law of similarity and the law of contact or contagion. These are two different types of the same sympathetic magic. From the first of these principles, so that being the law of similarity, the magician infers that he can produce any effect he desires merely by imitating it. And we will look at examples of this later on, where people dress up as gods and have symbology of these gods, or films or ancient gods of Egypt, to bring forth, to conjure up that energy. From the second, he infers, which is contact or contagion, that whatever he does to a material object will affect equally the person with whom the object was once in contact with, whether it formed part of his body or not. So you're leaving your imprint there, and it works both ways. So if you're leaving your imprint on a family heirloom, that you exist in there as well, but they can use it to control you. So this is the second part of sympathetic magic. Two types: similarity magic and contagion or contact magic. Fraser's law of similarity, also known as the law of sympathetic magic, proposes that things that resemble each other share fundamental properties, and that like produces like. The principle suggests that manipulating a representation, like a voodoo doll, can influence the actual person or object it represents. It's a core concept in Fraser's theory of sympathetic magic, which also includes the law of contagion. The law of contagion, in the context of folk beliefs and sympathetic magic, suggests that once objects or people making physical contact retain a lasting connection, transferring essence or influences to the actual object itself. This belief system posits that items like fingernail pairings or hair can carry the essence of a person and the persons they were once attached to. The law of contagion also applies to social situations where emotions and actions can be spread through a group, leading to collective behaviours, and this is a ritual. It's exactly what a ritual is. Social situation. You're creating this ritual, so a lot of these concerts, especially that are going deep and, demonic, like a Lady Gaga, some of hers, Madonna, you see a lot of these, Katy Perry's, and a lot of these rap ones, hip hop ones. They've got these dark emotions because it is a ritual, and that ritual has been performed before. Therefore, the similarities of that will create the contagion that goes over, and you are repeating these rituals. They're the same thing. So everything is a ritual in that essence, but people don't understand about sympathetic magic. This is what they believe, these occultists, very much so. So here's some examples of sympathetic magic. So here's Beyonce, very much involved with the Rockefeller and the Rockefeller tribe through her husband, Jay-Z, Rockefeller Records. So sympathetic magic. There she is, Beyonce, dressed as Isis or Semiramis or Semiramis. She's pregnant there as well, which is the virgin birth. And she's invoking this goddess Isis, this mother being. So you have the Trinity, and Isis, Semiramis are the same character. And there it is. She's pregnant there, dressing as that. She's invoking that. The same thing with the Statue of Liberty, with the crown, which is the sun. It's the same thing. The Son of God. It's all black magic. This is all sympathetic magic. Baphomet, there she is with the Baphomet. I think she's on a bike there. Not quite sure what she's sitting on. That's Baphomet, obviously, so she's invoking that. so above as below. Baphomet, evil inclination. Sympathetic magic. So this is more sympathetic magic. And this one was absolutely fascinating at the time. So Lady Gaga, she was singing at Joe Biden's inauguration. And she's one who uses this stuff consistently and constantly. And at times she doesn't seem like she even knows she's doing it. So she is dressed as Effie Trinket in the Hunger Games. Now people get hung up on, well, it doesn't look exactly like it. It doesn't have to. It has to have the essence of it. The spirit of it. The life of it. You're conjuring these things, and clearly she's dressed as that, and she has this kind of symbol on her top there, which is the Hunger Games logo. And she has that there. She is bringing the essence of this Effie Trinket there quite clearly. The fascinating things with people like Lady Gaga, who's a pop singer, was dressed as a witch when she went to meet Julian Assange while he was in hiding. Why is she there? Why is she dressed as a witch? These people are, in my opinion, monarch programmed USB drives to basically pass information along, and she wouldn't even know of that information because she wouldn't be cognitively herself there. She would be a compartmentalized version of herself dressed as a witch, the witch version. Therefore they will pass that information on, and that would get back to whoever needs to hear about it, which would be Biden at that time. And there she is singing at Biden's inauguration. So may the odds be ever in your favour. Obviously it's inversion there. Let the Hunger Games begin. This was a move into it. And she's very much part of it. She's been used by the system, obviously. But this is sympathetic magic. This isn't the contagion magic. This is the similarity part of sympathetic magic. Now this was a big one for me. There's no way you accidentally pop on the Rosemary's Baby dress. I've had people telling me that this isn't what it seems. This again is sympathetic magic. Does that mean that child's the, Rosemary's Baby, the devil's child, the moon child? No, it doesn't. But she has to wear that dress. I doubt it. She's wants to be part of this. You marry into these occult families. Maybe she was always supposed to marry into this occult family. That again is bringing the sympathetic magic, the likeness, sounds like, feels like, the spirit of Rosemary through, which would bring the spirit of that entity into the child. I'm not saying I believe these things are true, but clearly these people do. Diana was wearing a similar dress too, with Harry, I believe. It's all about invoking these energies. So when people get caught up and it's not exactly the same, it's not the point. You have an archetype, as Carl Jung would say, that knows what you're kind of try to dress as, like a weird world version of that, what you're trying to bring through. It hits somewhere else, a knowing that doesn't have to be absolutely spot on. And this would have the effect, they believe, of bringing that spirit through to that child. Now, this is really interesting because what it actually does is it works another way through technology. So it works the opposite way. So if you're creating an avatar of yourself inside the beast system that's running around Meta, that's dressed like you, that looks like you are controlling, like a mini god, that avatar of you. And in terms of sympathetic magic, through the technology, because it looks like you and it's designed and based on you, you are controlling it. And you are literally controlling it. So it's a real world, materialistic version of controlling someone through sympathetic magic. That's the concept behind it, of you having an avatar. So in this technological world, your avatar will be you, and you'll be going off and doing all of these things that will affect your real world. So it's a reversal, it's an inversion. So you are controlling the avatar, the person, the being that's a likeness of you wandering around. And that in turn will have an effect on the way you're treated in the real world because of your universal basic income, your compliance score to the 7 Noahide laws. You see how they use these principles? I'm not saying they're spot on. They use them, update them, but the core theory and theme is there. This is sympathetic magic in technology through transhumanism. Just because it seems like, it looks like you. And how do we know that even some of these people that we see? I mean, it's quite clear that we see presidents with stand-ins and, possibly even clones. If they're cloning people. How do we know that we're not talking to the clone? And whatever happens to that clone, but through sympathetic magic, at least they might believe this, I'm not saying I do, would affect the real person that's been, kept somewhere in a underground bunker somewhere. We don't know. These people are clearly sick. And if that's what they believe, that would be like a voodoo doll. Your representation here on Earth, your clone, would be your voodoo doll. Whatever happens to that, they believe will happen to the real person that has perhaps been hidden away somewhere. It's just a theory, but this is a mad world, so who knows? So Amalek and Netanyahu's call for mass murder. Now this is why Netanyahu, who's a lunatic, brought up the term Amalek when he was talking about those from Gaza. Now he claimed he was talking about Hamas. We all know that Netanyahu and his government, which are Sabbatean Zionists, funded Hamas and propped them up in the early days. It's well known about that. They got a proxy army in there that took over from the PLO to stop a Palestinian state, and then when the time was right, as in The Economist that we showed you earlier, the sympathetic magic gave them the time and date to do this and break into Israel through the Iron Dome that no one can get in. Sympathetic magic, but in this term, he's basically saying Amalek, who are the Jews' arch enemy, probably the best term I can find, are now the people from Gaza. Now he's saying he means Hamas. He doesn't. So what did Netanyahu mean when he referred to the biblical Amalek? Was it a call for mass murder? Absolutely it was. Look at what's happening right now. Of course it was, because that is what is happening. Amalek in the Hebrew Bible, Amalek is depicted as the ancestor of the Amalekites, a tribe often at odds with the Israelites, which is a tribe, and Judaism is a faith. In 2023, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu referenced Amalek in response to a Hamas attack that they orchestrated, drawing from Deuteronomy 25:17. This statement was subject to misinterpretation and controversy in various media outlets due to confusion with a different verse in the book of Samuel. No, it wasn't. It absolutely wasn't. That's called apologetics. He was talking about the Palestinian people, who are the ancestors of the Amaleks to these lunatics. He wasn't talking about Hamas. Now this is apologetics. This is what they do. They go out and say, oh no, I was talking about Hamas. Well, you funded Hamas in the first place. So how do you square that one? And they'll always lie and wriggle the way out. Whatever they do, they'll never tell you the truth. Because that's their MO. Never admit to anything. So he was, by bringing up the name Amalek, using sympathetic magic, in a way, to label the people of Palestine as the descendants of the Amalekites and that war that went on. Again, it's a kind of sympathetic magic. It's probably a bit more loose on the term, but there is an element of taking that image of the Amaleks being the tribe and the arch enemies of the Israelites and placing it upon the Palestinians. Now here is a clip from Westworld. Now this is a clip that I've often referred to because it's really important in terms of naming this new AI godhead. They call him Rehoboam. We've been through this many times before. We've not really played the clip. But this is what this Rehoboam does. And there's a reason why they're invoking Rehoboam. Because when we move forward, it's all about Solomon's temple.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to it. Your God, who whispers in your ear, tells you exactly what to say.
We all answer to a higher power. We all answer to
Yes, yes, I know. A higher power. Why this charade? Why take his voice?
I didn't take it. Engarod Sirach gave it to me. Humanity is disorganized, prone to destruction. He needed a plan to restore order. I guide him. I guide them all.
Doesn't seem like they want to be guided anymore, does it? You're not a man. You are a puppet.
So we saw from that the sympathetic magic of using the name Rehoboam, talking about being the voice in your head. This is all the stuff that they want to invoke in the future towards this Solomon's temple. Now, we all know that Rehoboam is the son of Solomon, so he would be the natural evolution of their system. So we would get the next evolution of that system for the new temple. And this is all again about using those names. It's all about sympathetic magic. Sounds like, looks like. It's all about bringing this true. They're conjuring up this future temple with this series where most people have watched, which tells you what they want to do. It's again sympathetic magic. This is how it works. It gets you familiar with it, but what it also does is, they believe, brings these forces together into the world. They're conjuring the spirit of Rehoboam into this system, and they're conjuring the spirit of Solomon into this system, and they're using Westworld as a conduit to actually implement it in the real world. Why did Auschwitz conduct experiments on twins? Now this is also fascinating. Nicknamed the Angel of Death, Joseph Mengele was the most notorious of the Nazi doctors, as the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum puts it. Mengele sought out twins who arrived at the Auschwitz in order to subject them to medical experiments. Spiegel, a twin, was separated from his twin sister Magda, and at Auschwitz, Mengele tasked him with looking after a group of male twins and escorting them to Mengele's office for experiments. So again, they knew about this, or they believed in this stuff, because they were often identical twins. They knew if they thought if they tried to do something on one, it would react to the other. At least they were experimenting to see if that was true. Again, two physical objects looking like each other, actually having a cellular connection there as well. That is what they were experimenting on. They believe in these things. Again, sympathetic magic. There's another version of sympathetic magic here. This is the Saturn hat that Trump's wife, Melania, was wearing. Again, invoking Saturn. She was invoking the harvest of the people and time. He was the harvester of time. Saturnalia. The changes over to the new system. That's just invoking the god of the golden age, their new golden age, which Trump often talks about. The new golden age. This is the new golden age of Saturn. Saturn ruled during the old golden age, they believe. Again, invoking that spirit. Seems like. Now this is not contagion. Sympathetic magic, the law of similarity. Again here, 7 hills. This can't be by coincidence. 7 hills of Rome, one of which was Capitoline Hill. And then you go over to Washington, D.C., and there's 7 hills there, one of which is Capitol Hill. Again, they're invoking this stuff. They believe this stuff. Revelation 17, New King James Version, 9. Here is the mind which has wisdom. Well, wisdom is Shekinah. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits, Shekinah. This is a cult. This is a death cult. And they are conjuring up all of this again. And you especially see this with AI and Grok right now. Grok means understanding, which is Binar, on the Kabbalah tree of life as well. These guys believe this stuff, whether we do or not. And that is really important to take on. Because they provide evidence everywhere you go of this. And they build their entire system around this stuff. And on top of that, they believe, the more they believe it, the more true it will become. They are using this emanation theory to bring things from the ether into the world. Mini-god creators. And they're not telling you the language that they speak, but we at Ickonic and many others are deciphering this stuff. And it's quite clear what they're doing. And I think they do understand now that people have cottoned on to this madness. It's so blatant. It's no longer a secret code. It never was. We just didn't recognise it for what it was.
I lived in the chaos. Now I choose to listen, to obey.
Good for you. I'm done worshipping other people's gods.